today we are going to see about the research methodology topic. In research methodology, we are going to see the different research philosophies. And what are the different research philosophies in research methodology, as well as what is the difference between the philosophy that we deal with research. So, in research, we have the objectives. In research, we do research for two reasons. One is people will fill the knowledge gap. The other one is they try to solve the problem. So people do research in order to fill the knowledge gap, and some people do research in order to solve the problems. So dealing with the knowledge gap, when you want to find the new knowledge, because research is research, you try to fill the knowledge that is not yet developed. So we have the knowledge, in order to find out the knowledge gap, what we do is we try to study the theory, you study the materials, the previous research, etc., in order to find out the knowledge gap. Whereas when people do this kind of research, that is, they identify the problem, people identify the problem and try to solve the problem. So there are two in research. The objective is either find the knowledge gap or identify the problem. So we develop a model. In research, we develop a model for this. So what is that model? The model is otherwise called as a research paradigm. So in order to understand what is research paradigm, when we do research, as we said earlier, there are two approaches or the two reasons we are trying to find out how the people solve the problem or how they find the knowledge gap. We have to develop a model. Model is nothing but a research paradigm. So to advance this, in order to advance the research, we should know the advanced knowledge of research. What are the advanced concepts of research? One is ontology. The second one is epistemology. And the third one is you try to find out the methodology. Fourth one, you try to find out the methods. And the fifth one, you try to find out the structure. This is called as research paradigm because whenever you want to develop a model, you have to follow all these steps and you have to have an advanced knowledge of the research concepts. What is the advanced knowledge of research concepts? Trying to think about ontology. You try to find the reality and no reality. So for reality, interpretive is they try to observe the students or observe, identify the problem in order to find the solution. So they try to describe the situation, and so it is called as descriptive research. Descriptive research, otherwise called as qualitative research. You call it as descriptive research, otherwise called as qualitative research. Qualitative. Whereas in the case of doing research, whenever we see no reality, that is, whenever you do research, no reality, you want to find out the reality. The people who find out the reality are called as positivists. They try to assume the hypothesis. They try to find the reasons, for research. In that case, they do not know what the reality is. That is why we say it is no reality. So positivists, what they do, they try to assume the hypothesis. They want to find the relation between any two variables. In other terms, we call it as variables. So you try to find out relationship between any of the concepts. Say for example, happiness and achievement. If we say happiness and achievement, if the students are going to be very happy, their achievements is going to be good. Whether it is a reality, whether it is a reality, we want to find out how. So for this, what they do is they try to assume the hypothesis, or they want to find out the cause of happiness. The cause of happiness is nothing but they try to achieve more. So you say that it is a causal research. This here we try to assume the hypothesis, and you try to find out the concepts. You find the relationship in the hypothesis. As I told you, it is the relationship between happiness and achievement. You want to name it as hypothesis 1, hypothesis 2, etc. You frame the hypothesis and you try to find out try to find out the reasons for happiness, for example. So you frame the questionnaire, you collect the data, you analyze the data using statistics, and then you try to find out whether the reality is okay. Here you try to go for review of related literature and then come to a conclusion. So such a research, when you make use of statistics, it is called as qualitative research. So our ontology, the research has to base on our ontology. Then we have to base on our epistemology. What is epistemology? Epistemology is the knowledge, the theory of knowledge, we call it as. So while doing research, what is the knowledge we are trying to gain doing research? That we need to find. Then we have to find out, we have to frame the methodology. Methodology is what sort of methods you are going to adapt, either if you are doing a qualitative research or you are doing a quantitative research, and what is the method you are going to adapt, and how about the structure. So while considering the interpretivists, they think about the reality and they go with the qualitative research. And what is their epistemology? What is their knowledge? They try to collect the knowledge from the individuals. So as an example, I told you it is case study. So in the case study, so suppose if you identify, we talk about a different problem. Suppose if you want to identify stress of a student. So if you want to reduce the stress of the student, and you try to find out what are the causes, you try to interpret in the terms of the causes of stress for a particular student, and you observe the various students, you accumulate the observations, and as we know that the students don't behave in the same way, we try to accumulate and you describe the causes of stress and you try to interpret. That is nothing but your knowledge for the interpretivists, and they try to give a qualitative description of the research. So epistemology for interpretivists is nothing but it is described. And what is the methodology they are going to follow? Of course, they are also going to follow the same method, doing the research objectives first. Research objectives. So you write the aims here, research objectives. Then you try to find out the review literature, review of related literature, we call it as. They also find out what is the, they collect the data is being collected and it is being analyzed. Then they try to validate. In the case of qualitative research, they validate because it is in the interpretive is because they get the information from the human beings, and the human beings, they have the rationality to behave in different timings in different ways. So we have to validate the knowledge in the case of the qualitative research. Whereas in the quantitative research, we name it as positivist research, where we are following the quantitative research. Quantitative research, in the case of quantitative research, first we follow the research objectives, aims and objectives, then you try to find out the data. In the case of quantitative research, we can do in a different way. We can collect the data, making use of the questionnaire. We collect the data, and you also find out the review of related literature. So to our data, we try to analyze. How we analyze? Making use of the statistics. We analyze the data making use of the various statistics. So we develop a model also there, and we come to, as a conclusion step, we try to interpret the result. How do we interpret the result? By making use of the review of related literature. For example, if you are taking two variables like happiness and achievements, you collect the literature of happiness, then you collect the literature of achievements of students, and try to relate with your result what you have got, and try to interpret the result, whatever result you have got. That is, you call it as the quantitative research. So we have a research paradigm. We will repeat again what we learned today. That is, whenever we have research methodology, in the research methodology, we have different research philosophies, and we have the objectives, and we also have two reasons to do research. So two reasons: one is to fill the knowledge gap, the other is you identify problem solving research. So people do two types of research. Always we need to have a continuum between these two research. We cannot stick on with finding the knowledge gap alone, or we cannot stick on with identifying the problem alone. We have to have a continuum. That is why we do a research. We think about a model which is called as research paradigm. So in the research paradigm, we develop a model. In order to develop a model, we are trying to go for some advanced research concepts, where we think about the ontology, the epistemology, the methodology which we are going to follow, the methods we are going to follow, and the structure. So when we do ontology, we want to find out whether the problem identified has a reality, has single reality, or no reality, or multiple reality. We also have, in the case of positivism, multiple reality. So ontology describes what is truth. And in the case of epistemology, we try to find out the knowledge. The knowledge gap is filled in epistemology. You try to find the knowledge of research. In the methodology, you try to follow the methods. Like you have to have the in the methods, you have to what are the methods you are following, whether you are giving the questionnaire, whether you are having a structured interview. It varies for positivists and interpretivists. It varies for qualitative and quantitative research. So methodology is that how we are going to follow the method, and methods is nothing but how we are going to analyze the data. That is the method you follow in both qualitative and quantitative research. And the structure is how you write the thesis. Finally, how you write your thesis. It varies with qualitative research and quantitative research. Where it varies is, in the case of qualitative research, you can have all this. You can write the aims, review of related literature, data. You can collect the data, you can analyze and validate. In the case of qualitative research, you may have to validate. In the case of quantitative research, what you do is you analyze the data making use of statistics, and you generalize. What you are doing is actually you are following a method of induction. and the method of deduction. So, method of induction is followed in the qualitative research and method of deduction is followed in the quantitative research. So, this is how we go with the research philosophies. We are trying to integrate our research paradigms, making use of the research philosophies. Thank you.